OSS Files, Season 1, Episode 1, The Secret That Saved D-Day, the OSS Files. If the Germans had opened just one of the files hidden inside this room, more than 150,000 Allied soldiers would have sailed directly into a massacre. I know that because I helped make sure they never found them. My name is Daniel Carter. Back then, I wasn't a hero. I wasn't a general. I never stormed the beaches of Normandy. I carried no medals worth displaying. If history remembered men like me at all, it usually didn't remember our names. Our victories belonged to someone else. Our failures were buried forever. For almost 40 years, I promised myself these files would never leave this room. Some secrets protect nations, others protect ghosts. Tonight, that promise ends. People often say the Second World War was won by courage. They're right, but courage alone wasn't enough. Sometimes, victory depended on convincing your enemy to believe a lie so enormous, so impossible, that even today, many people still struggle to understand how it worked. Before a single American boot touched the beaches of Normandy, before the first landing craft crossed the English Channel, before dawn on the 6th of June 1944, another battle had already begun. A battle fought without tanks, without artillery, without fighter planes. It was fought with paper, radio signals, fake armies, false reports, and men whose greatest weapon was imagination. The German High Command believed they understood exactly how the Allies would invade Europe. They had spent years preparing. Thousands of bunkers stretched across the Atlantic Wall. Millions of mines waited beneath the sand. Heavy artillery overlooked every possible landing beach. Machine gun nests covered every approach. Hitler believed no invasion could succeed, and if it came, his generals believed they would destroy it before it reached the shore. They were confident, perhaps too confident, because while Germany reinforced the coastline, a completely different war was unfolding behind closed doors. A war very few people even knew existed. I still remember the first time I entered the planning room. The walls were covered with enormous maps of northern France. Colored pins marked every German division. Red strings connected supply routes. Photographs taken from reconnaissance aircraft covered entire tables. The room smelled of cigarette smoke, coffee, and fear. No one smiled. No one spoke unless absolutely necessary. Every conversation ended with the same question. How do we fool Adolf Hitler? Not defeat him, not attack him, fool him. At first, the idea sounded absurd. The German military possessed one of the largest intelligence networks in the world. Reconnaissance aircraft flew daily. Spies operated across Europe. Radio intercept stations listened constantly. Every convoy, every ship, every airplane could be observed. How could anyone possibly hide the largest invasion in human history? The answer was that we wouldn't hide it. We would hide something much bigger. That idea changed everything. Instead of concealing the invasion, we would create another one, a fake invasion, an entire army that never existed. I remember staring at the officers around the table. Someone finally broke the silence. If we're going to fool Hitler, then the lie has to be larger than the truth. Nobody laughed, because everyone understood exactly what that meant. If even one German reconnaissance pilot noticed something unusual, if one double agent betrayed us, if one radio operator transmitted the wrong message, if one fake tank looked convincing from the ground but ridiculous from the air, thousands of young Americans would pay for our mistake. That responsibility settled over the room like concrete. From that moment, every decision became a matter of life and death. Within days, the impossible project began. Across southern England, entire military camps suddenly appeared. Rows of Sherman tanks, Hundreds of trucks, fuel depots, field hospitals, supply warehouses, thousands of tents, observation posts, artillery positions. At first glance, everything looked completely authentic. Even from several hundred meters away, it looked real. That was exactly the point. Because we never intended to fool the soldiers standing nearby. We only needed to fool someone looking from the sky. German reconnaissance aircraft. Their cameras would capture photographs. Those photographs would travel through intelligence headquarters. Analysts would examine every shadow, every vehicle, every road, every fuel dump. Looking for clues, we intended to give them exactly what they wanted to see. Except, none of it was real. The tanks were made of rubber. The artillery pieces were hollow. The trucks, mostly plywood. The aircraft, canvas stretched over wooden frames. Even the tire tracks leading through the mud had been carefully planned. At first, it felt ridiculous. I remember watching engineers inflate an M4 Sherman tank with an air compressor. Within minutes, a 30-ton armored vehicle had appeared, without a single piece of steel. One gust of wind could make it sway. One careless soldier with a knife could destroy it. Yet from 3,000 feet, captured through the lens of a German reconnaissance camera, it looked exactly like the real thing. That was all we needed, because intelligence isn't built on certainty. It's built on probability. The Germans didn't need to believe every single tank was real. They only needed to believe that enough of them were. That small difference would decide the fate of Europe. But fake equipment alone would never fool experienced intelligence officers. We needed something much more convincing. Human behavior. Real armies make noise. Thousands of vehicles move every day. Radio operators transmit constantly. Supplies arrive. Fuel disappears. Commanders issue orders. Medical units prepare hospitals. Engineers build roads. A living army leaves behind thousands of invisible fingerprints. So, we created every one of them. Every morning, radio operators sat in front of transmitters for hours. They weren't talking to anyone. They were creating conversations. Endless military traffic, requests for fuel, vehicle movements, artillery reports, routine logistics. Everything sounded authentic. Every transmission followed real military procedures. Every operator copied the communication style of genuine American units. Soon, German listening stations began hearing exactly what we wanted them to hear. An army preparing to invade. Only, it wasn't the army that would actually cross the English Channel. The deception grew larger every week. Entire supply depots appeared overnight. Dummy landing craft crowded British ports. Convoys deliberately traveled roads where German aircraft were likely to photograph them. Sometimes, the same convoy drove in circles for hours. Simply so, enemy reconnaissance would report increasing activity. Nothing happened by accident. Every truck, every tent, every radio message, every visible movement was another sentence inside the biggest lie ever told during wartime. Then came the final piece. General George S. Patton. Among German commanders, no American officer inspired more respect or fear. They believed Patton was the Allies' finest battlefield commander. Aggressive, fast, unpredictable. If the main invasion were coming, surely Patton would command it. The Germans considered that obvious, so we let them. Patton became commander of an army. That didn't exist. The first United States Army Group, FUSAG. On paper, it was enormous. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers, thousands of vehicles, massive quantities of equipment. A force powerful enough to invade France through Pas de Calais. Its headquarters appeared genuine. Its communications never stopped. Its camps expanded daily. Everything supported The invasion could collapse within hours. Every fake tank, every forged document, every intercepted radio message, every double agent had been working toward one single moment, the 6th of June, 1944. I remember stepping outside headquarters that evening. England felt strangely quiet. The sky was heavy with low reading reports. Waiting had become the hardest part. Around midnight, messages began arriving. The 1st Airborne Divisions had crossed the channel. American paratroopers were already descending into occupied France. Some landed miles away from their objectives. Others landed directly among German troops. Confusion spread across Normandy, exactly as planned, but confusion alone wasn't enough. Our deception still had one final job: to convince Hitler that Normandy was not the real invasion, only a diversion, while thousands of Allied soldiers fought for their lives on the beaches. Our radio operators continued transmitting. Exactly as before, routine traffic, logistics, orders, movement reports. Everything suggested that the enormous 1st U.S. Army Group remained in southeast England, waiting, preparing, growing stronger. German listening stations heard nothing unusual because nothing had changed. At least, nothing they could detect. Then came one of the most extraordinary moments I ever witnessed. One of our intelligence officers entered carrying fresh intercepts from German communications. He spread the papers across the table. Every face leaned forward. Berlin still believed the main invasion would come through Pas-de-Calais. Even after American troops had landed in Normandy, silence filled the room. Not relief, disbelief. Months of planning, thousands of people, millions of dollars, an entire imaginary army, and somehow the greatest military machine in Europe still believed the illusion. But nobody dared celebrate, because there was one man whose decision mattered more than anyone else's: Adolf Hitler. If he ordered the panzer divisions toward Normandy, everything could still change. So we waited, hour after hour, listening, watching, praying that one man's certainty would become his greatest mistake. We waited, not minutes, hours. Every clock inside headquarters seemed to move slower than the last. Outside, the largest amphibious invasion in history was already underway. Young Americans were fighting for every yard of sand. Landing craft burned in the surf. Destroyers fired toward the cliffs. Medics dragged wounded men through freezing water stained with smoke and blood. Yet inside our operations room, the battle was completely silent. Our weapons were reports, intercepted messages, radio traffic. Every few minutes a courier entered carrying another folder. Nobody asked unnecessary questions. One sentence was enough. Berlin has transmitted new orders. Everyone looked up. Maps were covered with fresh markings. Pins moved again. One German division had shifted west. Another remained in reserve. Then another report arrived. The 15th Army, Germany's largest concentration of troops in Western Europe, was still holding its positions around Pas-de-Calais, still waiting, still expecting the real invasion, exactly where we wanted them. Someone quietly whispered, "They're still looking in the wrong direction." Nobody answered. We all understood what that meant. Every German division waiting near Calais was one less division attacking Normandy. Every hour they remained there, thousands of Allied soldiers gained another chance to survive. But everything still depended on one man, Adolf Hitler. Many German commanders wanted immediate action. Field reports from Normandy were becoming impossible to ignore. They knew something enormous was happening. Some believed this was the invasion. Others insisted it was only the first move. The deception had done something extraordinary. It had created uncertainty at the highest level of the German command. And uncertainty is the enemy of decisive action. Then came another message. One of our double agents had transmitted fresh intelligence to the Germans. The report claimed that the landings in Normandy were merely a diversion, designed to draw German forces away from the true objective, Pas-de-Calais. Exactly the story Berlin already wanted to believe. That was the genius of Operation Fortitude. The best lie is never completely new. It confirms what the listener already hopes is true. Hours passed. Then another intercepted communication arrived. Hitler refused to release several armored divisions. He remained convinced that a second, much larger invasion would soon strike Calais. The room fell silent. Not because we were celebrating, but because none of us could quite believe what we were reading. Months of deception, rubber tanks, fake radio traffic, imaginary headquarters, double agents, every impossible idea had led to this single decision. History was changing because one man trusted information that had been carefully designed to deceive him. By now, the beaches of Normandy had become a battlefield unlike anything Europe had seen. Omaha, Utah, gold, Juno, sword. Each name would soon become part of history. But history almost never remembers the battle taking place hundreds of miles away. Inside intelligence offices, inside radio stations, inside rooms like ours, no explosions, no gunfire, only paper, pens, maps, and silence. I remember looking around that room. No one smiled, no one shook hands. Some men simply lowered their heads. Others closed their eyes for a moment, not because victory had arrived, because they finally understood. The deception had worked, yet the danger wasn't over. German armored divisions would eventually move. Everyone knew that. The question was no longer if, but when, and every minute they remained away from Normandy allowed Allied engineers to unload more vehicles, more fuel, more ammunition, more food, more men. The beachhead was growing stronger with every passing hour. What had begun as a fragile foothold was becoming an army Germany could no longer push back into the sea. That realization slowly spread across headquarters. The impossible was becoming inevitable. Only then did someone quietly fold the latest intelligence report, place it back inside the classified folder, and say the words none of us would ever forget. They believed us. No cheers followed, no applause, only silence. Because every man in that room understood something history rarely teaches. Sometimes, the most powerful weapon in war is not a rifle. It is belief. They believed us. Those words stayed with me for the rest of my life. Not because they marked the end of a mission, but because they proved something I had never fully understood until that moment. Wars are not won by weapons alone. They're won by decisions, by timing, by trust, and sometimes by convincing your enemy to make the wrong choice. As reports continued arriving throughout June, the picture became clearer. The Allied beachhead was expanding. More soldiers crossed the channel every day. More tanks rolled onto French soil. Temporary harbors were assembled. Supply lines stretched across the sea. What had once seemed impossible was becoming unstoppable. German commanders finally began shifting armored divisions toward Normandy. But by then, the opportunity had passed. The beaches had held. The foothold had become a front, and the front would become the road that eventually led to Paris, then Belgium, then Germany itself. Looking back now, people often ask whether Operation Fortitude won the war. No, nothing in history is ever that simple. Thousands of battles still had to be fought. Thousands of young men would never return home. Entire cities still lay ahead. But I have often wondered what might have happened if Hitler had ignored the reports. If he had ordered every available panzer division toward Normandy during those first critical hours, would Omaha Beach have survived? Would Utah have held? Would the Allies have established a permanent foothold? No one can answer those questions with certainty. History does not allow second chances, only consequences. One thing, however, is beyond dispute. Hitler kept some of his strongest forces waiting near Pas-de-Calais for weeks after the landings, waiting for an invasion that would never come, waiting for an army that had never existed. The first United States Army Group, the greatest army ever built, without fighting a single battle. Rubber tanks, wooden airplanes, empty camps, imaginary headquarters, radio operators speaking to no one, and brave men and women willing to risk everything, not by pulling a trigger, but by protecting a lie. Many of them never received medals. Some remained classified for decades. Others returned home and never told their families what they had done. That was the nature of intelligence. When you succeed, someone else becomes the hero. When you fail, no one remembers your name. Sometimes I think about those nights in England, the smell of coffee that had gone cold, stacks of photographs covering the tables, the constant sound of Morse code echoing through the halls, the silence whenever another intelligence report arrived. We were ordinary people, carrying extraordinary responsibility. None of us knew whether history would remember our work. Truthfully, we assumed it never would. Perhaps that was for the best. Not every victory needs applause. Some victories only need to happen. I still keep one photograph from those days. The edges have faded. The paper has become brittle. Most of the faces have long since disappeared from this world. When I look at it, I don't remember fake tanks, or maps, or radio transmissions. I remember the weight of knowing that if we failed, thousands of young Americans would die before ever reaching the beaches of France. That burden never truly leaves you. People remember D-Day because they can see it. The landing craft, the explosions, the courage, the sacrifice. But history is filled with invisible victories. Victories that leave no monuments, no famous photographs, no parades, only quiet rooms, filled with people doing impossible work, hoping no one would ever know their names. Perhaps that is exactly how they wanted it, because in our world, the perfect mission was the one nobody ever realized had taken place. And maybe that is why these files remain closed for so many years. Not to hide the truth, but to protect the people who carried it. Tonight, you know their story. The story of the greatest deception ever attempted during war. The deception that helped open the gates of Western Europe. The deception that gave D-Day the precious hours it needed. The deception that changed history without firing a single shot. The old man slowly reaches toward the recorder. For a moment, he simply watches the reels continue spinning. Then he smiles, not with pride, with relief. He gently closes the worn leather folder. The room falls silent once again. Only the soft mechanical sound of the tape recorder remains. He places one hand over the folder, as if saying goodbye to old friends. Finally, he presses the stop button. Thank you for opening another classified file with me. If stories like this deserve to be remembered, help keep them alive. Subscribe to Echoes of Valor so you never miss the next classified mission. Leave a like if this story surprised you. And tell me in the comments, what was the most unbelievable part of Operation Fortitude? I read as many of your comments as I can, and I'd love to know what you think. If you'd like to explore the real history behind these missions, I've left links in the description to some of the best World War II books, collectibles, model kits, and historical items available on Amazon. Every purchase helps support this channel and allows us to keep bringing forgotten stories back to life. Until next time, another file is waiting.